Hey there, and welcome to the Event Marketers Toolbox. I am Chris Dunn. I'm with Blue Hive Exhibits, and I am live and in the studio. I feel like we're at the Toolbox news desk here. My friend Brendon, who I met online, and like some sort of a scary creeper, I'm like, I'm coming to visit you live and in person. Flew from Boston to Charlotte this morning. Wearing my Virginia Tech hat, so I fit in, in the Virginia North Carolina quadrangle, and here I am. So Brendon, you've created this little studio. This is not your normal setup, but thank you for making space for me.
Yeah, happy to have you.
Super excited to have you as my co-host, to be here live and in person with you.
Yeah.
We've got our friend Craig, who you're going to hear about, and all the cool stuff that he does. So Brendon, a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, well, this is Hamlin Creative HQ.
Okay.
And so this is where we operate out of. I'm Brendon Hamlin. I run Hamlin Creative, and we're basically a production company that focuses on events, and that can be conferences or trade shows or experiential activations, that kind of thing, and creating content in that space. And so we've been doing this for about a dozen years, and it's really a unique space to create content in, because it's not like doing a regular commercial or a photo shoot or something. It's something that is a little less organized or controlled, and it's can be a little chaotic sometimes, but that makes it fun too. Or you go and find those stories and really create the content in those spaces. So happy to have you here. Thank you so much for
Good to be here.
Making the trip down.
My pleasure.
And so it's my pleasure to introduce Craig Rapoza. Craig, thanks for being on the Toolbox today with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, we're excited to be here with IPME Event Structures. We are located in Southern California, Long Beach, California, near the port, and we're really happy to be here and talk about shipping containers and how to use them in events.
So we've got a lot of shows under our belt, and we've shared a few times in the past using some imagery. So Craig's going to actually be showing us a little bit of video as well as some pictures, because a picture's worth 1,000 words, especially for visual thinkers who I think are plentiful in the event and trade show format or forum. But before we do that, we're going to jump into our read. Now we've got our sponsors up here. So Hamlin Creative is hosting us, but our normal sponsors are Blue Hive Exhibits. That's a company that I work for. It's a 20-year-old creative agency. We're both East Coast and West Coast based. Honestly, the bulk of our work is primarily in the trade show arena, but we do a lot of permanent install work. We do event work, and really look forward to doing more work with Craig and his awesome, really super cool containers. And secondarily, we are also sponsored by Fist Bump. So Fist Bump is the group that's actually helping us host this show. They take a live show and we turn it into a podcast. So this is an opportunity for a company kind of step to the forefront to use some thought leadership to create content. Brendon, you were talking a lot about content earlier.
Yeah.
So these are conversations that started materializing a year ago with the founder of Fist Bump, and here we are. We're almost a year into this show. We've had some amazing conversations with different people all over the event realm, and it's just been super fun to have these great chats. Now, kind of a special story that we've got here. So Brendon and I actually met online on LinkedIn, and as maybe some of you know, I like my craft beer, so I post sometimes about Blue Hive has a beer club, and we enjoy certain beverages here and there. And I got an image and a connection request from a guy who was at a brewery. There's a picture of him drinking a beer. So in honor of me finally meeting Brendon, here we are in Halloween. We're going to do a little celebration. So we brought some beverages. Actually, Brendon brought a couple for me.
Yes.
Thank you very much, because I've flown in. They don't like to have you bring those. This is one of your favorite beers here. We're looking forward to trying it. This is the High Wire Brewery.
High Wire Brewing. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So we're probably going to go there as well.
I think we will. Yes, we'll definitely go there.
So I'll be trying this during the show. If you are watching us, you feel free to drink along, whether it's 9 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at night. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
All right. What are you going to have?
So we are filming this. we are filming this on the last day of October. So it is Halloween, but I love a good Oktoberfest. And so this is a brewery out of Waynesville, which is just outside of Asheville, called Boojum is the name of the brewing company. And this is their Oktoberfest, which is just absolutely delicious. So if you like Oktoberfest, this is a great one if you can get it where you are. But if you can't, you're missing out. So
there you go. Craig, you have kind of a fun story with regards. We gave Craig a heads up. We're like, we might drink a beer, and he's like, I got a good story. So tell us.
Yeah. So my son is a professional surfer and sponsored by, it happens to be Firestone and 805 beer. And so I brought a delicious IPA, a little festive yellow kind of one. I figured I'd bring and enjoy with you guys. So Firestone, it's a great brewery, and they've got an array of great beers that I've had the privilege to try a lot of.
There you go. Fantastic. Well, congratulations to your son for being on the Pro Surfers Tour, and we're having a beverage. So we can learn and we can have fun all at the same time.
Cheers.
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 Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah, I think the best way to start, and this seems to be a cadence when I'm on the show, is really to start at the outset, the 10,000 foot level. Like, what is it? Tell us about the process and transforming a shipping container into an experience. How does that work, and how do you do that?
Yeah, it typically it's stimulated from the client, right? A client has a particular need, a purpose. A lot of times, because we are a container, it might be an outdoor event or a tour. We're very good in the modulated world, but we do, probably 35%, maybe 40% of our activations are indoors. It's all about kind of a stout presence and being able to have a footprint that is kind of able to tell the story, have an attribute of experiential aspects. Could be video walls that are mounted to our system, which act as great ballast. It could be backlit SCG, it could be games, product and storylines, that kind of thing. So it usually comes with the client with a need. Depending on that need, they might be extremely well thought. They might have already a designer that has already thought through what they're kind of looking for. And then we could take that with our design team and then tell them, what we could do are these other things and enhancements, or what I might have. Could be thought-provoking images of, storytelling of, what they think they would like. Could be in an email with a bullet point description, and then our design team gets on with them, and we might share current portfolio images of what it is that we have. So it's kind of an array of things. And then, we kind of took that and we created kind of almost plug and play models that you can add on like Legos. And so, we're just adults playing with these rectangle cubes to build out an experience. We're fantastic in the two-story world. We're great in kind of expanding. We're also great at monetizing parking lots and such too. So it all comes from the need, right? I've got this, I need a sport event with this immersive hospitality check-in, to retail walk-up, to storytelling, to video wall, or super simplistic. I want to have a coffee pop-up, 10-foot thing that a barista could sit in, and I've got other attributes of the build that we're going to also in. So we're scaled from extremely small to multi-city, activation kind of thing. So.
What is it about a shipping container turned into something else that just gets people excited, right? I mean, there's just something already baked into this process that's different than building, a traditional, thing where you have to build it from virgin materials. What is it about a shipping container that draws people in?
I think, in the industry, there's a lot of classic utilization of materials, and you see it a lot, where the container is just a totally different structure that kind of, wow, that's different. Some people don't want it to look like a container, and I can make it look like a log cabin, inside and out. Or they truly want the industrial look with the corrugated metal and aspects of it and some sort of attribute of add-ons, whether it's aluminum storefront or something. But it's the stout presence that you instantaneously get. You kind of can't miss us, right? We are, and depending on how intuitive you are, you've got your classic signs that you might be holding from the ceiling. Well, I put that sign on top of the container, and then I pick the container and I put it 2 stories in the air. And so I now can create a stout presence, pretty simplistic as well. So it's really, I just think it's just so different from what the day-to-day norm, and everyone builds really great stuff. It's just your eye sees something different and it kind of radiates to, just goes right to it.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about kind of the types of companies that choose to utilize your services and your design, because, the crate is, or the container kind of is what it is, right? It has a heavy industrial feel to it, but like you were saying, I can make it look like a log cabin. I can make it look like a lot of different things. So it's not like just heavy duty equipment or construction companies or brands that kind of lean into that flavor, right? It can really be anything across the board, including like super high end and very refined, products.
Yeah. We have all walks of life that are coming to us again, and then most natural, where people might think, oh, it's very industrial. So, I think we worked a project with you guys for Sikaflex. Could be an industrial construction company, but then we get a lot of automotive. For some reason, automotive seems to really like containers, and what I might do is just share some examples that might kind of give you an aspect of, what, we kind of offer and what's out there. Here is a container that we use, and we just morphed it into drop-down walls. And this is Audi using it for the unveiling of their new EV. And they wanted influencers, magazines from around the world. They flew in to test drive on an airport that they rented, and this acts as hospitality. It acts as the check-in for handing out helmets, the waiver, the social aspect afterwards, the shade, all that. And so you can see Audi's using this as an option.
Great. Hey, Craig, before you go too much further, so a lot of folks will end up consuming this show as a podcast and won't necessarily be able to see what we've got here. So just real brief description. What we're looking at here, this is I think probably a 20-foot container, and all the sides are basically ripped off, and there's a double deck. How much would you kind of describe that in your terms?
Yes, you're exactly right. It is a 20-foot container, and it has a second story on top. It's another 20-foot roof deck with stairs. The 20-foot container expands its footprint into 24 feet wide, because we take both 20-foot walls and then we drop them down, and then the front will pop up as an awning and kind of give you an aspect for bar. We have the furniture that rides in the container. So when you get on site, you open it up and start displaying out what you need onto the decks. It has retractable awnings, sunsetter style, on both sides, so it acts for additional shade. And then we have some umbrellas that we put up top. I also have another version of the 20-foot second story that is built-in container roof, and we call it a shade-tainer. So we have both models without the shade built in or with shade built in. So that's Audi. And then we kit it out with wood accents, TVs, a little bit AV, custom bar. We have SCG attached to the front with branding. The actual awnings are branded. Every wayfinding sign attached to the system is also branded. It's got a lot of great features.
We were talking earlier, and you used kind of a descriptor that I thought was really cool, kind of the Trojan horse idea, right? So when we ship in a trade show exhibit, we've got crates and crates and crates, and each crate has a bunch of stuff in it, right? What you've got one giant crate, and all your stuff primarily is fitting within that. So from a transportation standpoint, it's pretty simplistic, right? Obviously that crate or a container is pretty sizable. It goes onto a flatbed truck or something that needs to be craned off or taken off with a big fork. But all your stuff is inside there, right? So when you've got these traveling shows, it probably makes it quite easy to go from city to city and not worry about losing the smaller ancillary pieces.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It's a prefab system. And again, the container acts as the supported box truck. So the trade show booth itself is supporting the add-ons that kind of enhance the show. And the beauty of that also is in drayage terms and the amount of forklift moves to bring additional crates that doesn't exist. It goes away. And then we are 15-minute moves. So one single truck will house two 20-foot, the container, the roof deck, and the stair. So in 15 minutes, we drop the ground floor. And in 15 more minutes, we do the second story. And then we build the stair, and it takes about 45. Then the walls will drop down, and then we start kitting it out. So we're really, really efficient. We use 2 laborers to do this. So the amount of efficiencies are just everywhere. And the immense kind of stress reliever that you have based on build is also just an added advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then, as I scroll through how we were talking indoors versus outdoors, here's an activation. They're using this. We call this particular one a retail walk-up in its premise, but it's also bar, as you could see, and then that same second story being reused up top. And so we have a 2-story, 20-foot system. Stairs now are off the backside versus off the side. So we have this intuitive design to incorporate stairs in different ways and not have to do any additional hard fab. But you get your brand immersiveness. You get the outlie area where you're having most of your stuff, but we are a mainstay, a backdrop, or an option of activation that supports the rest of the system.
Yeah. And for those folks who can't see it, all of the second story stuff where people are up on top obviously have OSHA regulated, railings and all that stuff, right? The safety is baked into this thing. So it's not like you guys have people walking around on a roof that could just step right off. Everything is fully designed and taken care of to keep your guests happy and safe.
And to build off that, all of our designs are structurally engineered to all 50 states, and we'll give wet stamps associated to those. So every show, right, you need your packet and all that stuff. Okay. This is all structurally engineered to be a multi-story system. And so we follow all the rules, regulations, all that good stuff.
Awesome.
As I kind of scroll through a little bit, we've got even simplistic designs, right? Again, automotive. This is South by Southwest. So I've got the new Volkswagen bus that they're unveiling. All these people that are in the foreground, which, are present, are majority are magazines and promoters of vehicles, and they're doing ride and drive. So within the system, we created a podcast booth right on the right side with aluminum storefront. The rest of the system, and that's about 6 feet of glass. Then the rest of the wall is all open air. We do have 3 85-inch TVs on the back wall turned 90, all communicating, and they're scheduling kind of the rides. And then in its most simplistic form, we just take another classic container, a shipping container. We put it on top for stoutness, viewability, all that, and then it's branded. So the nice thing is being able to have visibility elsewhere, and it's a 15-minute move with one forklift. Doesn't require riggers, all that. So, again, some advantages there.
Craig, this is kind of a little bit in the weeds, but kind of hit me. So you're doing South by Southwest. This is obviously a large event. It's in Austin. It's not a trade show. There are no fork trucks necessarily that are in this section of the city. Again, you're in front of a building here on a typical street or a city block. For that fork truck piece, are you guys bringing that yourself, or do you hire it locally, or how do some of those pieces work where you've got to lift something sizable and heavy up to the next level?
Yeah, we are specialists in heavy equipment moving. It's kind of our DNA, obviously having large containers. We schedule and have contracts with United Rentals or Hertz or any of the heavy equipment companies around the country. And so we just order right out of market and have it show up. And then I will fly in a forklift operator, certified, and he's also the labor to help build.
Okay.
And we're layered in that sense. Like, we can give you as much staff to help, or I will give you the forklift operator. He can act as a foreman and help with the teams that might have other builds on site. And he could just kind of help instruct as to how things are coming together, and also be a hand helping. So, but we are experts. And also, it's very, not that often, but we do have to use crane. We've come from the commercial building world. It's 100% crane in that world. And so we're also experts in, if we did ever need to use crane, but 90% of the event spaces, we don't have to do that. And as we were talking, from kind of simplistic stuff to grander things, I did with CES ID7. This is a project that we did for Volkswagen. They actually, the inner cube is classic event build structure. There's a turntable in there. There's a surround LED walls communicating about the new ID7. And we flanked it with able to host parties, have a bigger event prior, holding area while people might have to cycle through and out. So we created a nice deck system. It's elevated, 2 outflanking 20-foot ground floor, second story stair systems, pretty classic. You can see the popularity of those. And we created a much grander space. So we can scale it. But when we were talking about making it look like not a container, so here, we can clad the system. So we have an intuitive way in which we can hang materials on the side of the container, and this was made to look like a cinema. We used 2 20-foot containers side by side and created a movie theater. And this was for LG, their flat TV that they hung on the wall. We also Dolby Surround Sound and Stranger Things Season 2. So, when you asked about brands, that's just another diverse side of what brands might want to use. Yep. It's kind of a problem-based purpose that they needed, right? A means of being able to bring systems into places that they need to do a build real fast. This is sitting in New York City, out in front of Madison Square Garden. We were able to set this up, in a day and a half and have a movie theater interior, what it would look like. We have a 360-degree imaging. The room kind of gets filled up with images, and they're really highlighting the mainstay of an LG TV. And then they can go into the speaker system, and then they can go into the Stranger Things Season 2. And it's a whole immersive experiential experience that's a lot of video and a lot of people taking photos for Instagram and that kind of thing to help the brands get their message out.
I want to kind of jump off that point and talk a little bit about sustainability. I know you touched on it. We actually, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had a sustainability expert he was more on the trade show, typical trade show game side, but this is obviously very related and across our lives. In general, sustainability is a big thing, right? We see these storms that are, stronger and stronger every year. Every summer is the hottest summer ever, right? It's like what we've done to the earth is undeniably a problem. So, but we got to keep going. We got to keep doing business and whatnot, but we can make it better, right? We can improve upon what we've done. So tell us a little bit about some of the sustainability, whether it's an initiative or if it's literally just kind of baked into the DNA of how the container approach kind of works and why it is more sustainable than many other ways.
For IPME, it's part of our DNA. We pretty much were found using the container in the secondary market for the purpose of green structures. We come from the architectural side of things initially. So we built with commercial building requests, and we built, Container Park in Las Vegas. It's a 2-acre, 3-story system, containers done by the late Tony Shea. He wanted to utilize the container because it's a sustainable practices. They found us because that's what we do. And so we've got some great portfolio associated to it. So we kind of started in the commercial building, wanting to do the green lead and being able to kind of use the box in that mainstay. It then rolls into events when we entered into that market, that the approach seemed to be a build and burn approach, right? The amount of materials you use, and then you see the end of the show and like the amount of debris that was left over, and then kind of build it all over again. Wasn't the most efficient way. And I know that the industry's improved since what I'm talking about now. There's a lot of practices that have been built in, but that, we started back in 2012, and it wasn't necessarily a front of mind style where it is on our side. So we reuse, repurpose, rethink the approach to events by utilizing our rectangle boxes that we built out structurally. And so I can repurpose them over and over again. So, it all kind of starts with a classic square rectangle. And then we will come up with the concept or the design of what we would think and what is popular to use in events. I just so happen to be showcasing what we talked about with Audi earlier, with the drop-down walls and the second-story roof structure. And so we have an initial build where we use CO2, we use hot work and metal. We make an asset, but then that asset gets reused and repurposed time and time again. We strip it down with, all the materials. We reuse everything that you see in a system. We just have to put new paint on it. The only thing that gets usually thrown out or changed is the floor, and we've got ways to approach that. But you can see we used it for Audi, and then we use it for Visit City of Anaheim and downtown Disney. They had an activation, and we've used this structure more times over and over. But when we start really diving into sustainability, everyone wants to know CO2 and the impact. We've done calculations with classic 2-story 20 by 20 booth, and the moves are pretty excessive from the time in which classic build is done in a warehouse. All those crates get loaded into 18-wheeler to show delivered to site, back from back of house to repackage it up, back to the loading dock, onto the truck, back to the warehouse. Because we are the box truck, the Trojan horse, the easy forklift moves, we're like 12 forklift moves versus approximately 180 to get that same stoutness. So as we do the metric ton calculation on classic forklifts, and our metric ton is fraction based because we're only 12 forklift moves versus could be 180. So we like to brag and tout about that just because it is part of our DNA, and we feel pretty proud about if people would to rethink the approach, there is a better or a viable way to do it and it not cost more money. So that's kind of, what we're sharing here is, and it's not, for everyone, but it's just it kind of comes with the rental or the purchase. You get this DNA, this attribute of sustainability that's already baked in.
I love this templatized idea. Like it's because you can come to you and say, hey, we have this plan, but where, could we pull some of your elements in that might reduce our footprint a little bit by something that maybe you already have in stock, right? So so like you could see maybe instead of building everything up from the ground up,
right.
Part of it is going to be this modular piece that you already have in stock, right?
Yeah. In certain companies might have, a department or a division that has a bit of an aspect of a requirement. And so it's pretty easy to sit there and go, oh, I've got a solution for the need here. And again, like for what we offer and our footprint and all that, it does a really great job in fitting that need. If that truly is the need, sustainability sometimes can cost more, and it sometimes might drive the decision away from doing something. Where again, with us, it's kind of baked in, and we've got pricing models that are very adaptable or acceptable.
Craig, what's just looking at our notes here, the idea of the cradle to cradle philosophy. What is that? How does that fit in?
So cradle philosophy is, it really comes from where everything is manufactured, right? So the start of manufacturing something and the CO2, and it's also the ecosystem of the cycle. Is this system being reused, repurposed, and then the impact of landfill? And so cradle to cradle really is measuring CO2, say, to build the container. Well, the nice thing about our model is the container was built for a purpose to ship goods around the world. So our CO2 impact doesn't start there. Our CO2 impact, we get an upcycled system. So I take a container that's already been used to ship goods to the US, and then it's in our system. Our CO2 calculation doesn't start until I actually get the system, and then I do a cut into the system. And I do that initial build, and then 2016, I'm still using the identical asset that I created CO2 impact in 2016, and I no longer am creating a CO2 impact to build it. So, and then landfill impact, we again don't throw pretty much anything away. We reuse, repurpose. So we are probably one of the more minimalistic on the landfill impacts as well.
Several years ago, we created some content around a pop-up coffee cafe that traveled around to several cities and around the country. And I can imagine that to build, and it was a shipping container with an upstairs cafe, with an upstairs veranda for seating, and then things all out and around it. I can imagine that the impact, CO2 impact, to create that with virgin materials would have been astronomical as compared to this container, which traveled from to these 4 cities and recreated the experience in each of those cities, was, like you're saying, like minimal after that initial impact. So it's a really, I think once you start to look at it, you really see the opportunity to be much more sustainable without a lot of effort. Because you've already incurred the expense on that CO2 output, right?
Correct. Yeah. You bring up another interesting point too. With the pandemic, got really funky, right? People couldn't fly and no one's traveling, and so the industry had an epiphany or the thought of like, wait a minute, are all these auto shows still pertinent, or do I need to give another experience associated to the clientele or customer? And so Electrify Expo kind of exists, or, some other means to kind of activate. And so the premise kind of from that too was all of everyone flying into, say, Chicago for auto show, the amount of flights, the amount of hotels, the amount of car rentals and all that during that one show, it goes pretty high. Where with Electrify Expo, the carnival comes to you, right? Like the event comes to you. So you are really fraction based on CO2 with some of the minimalistic on the trucking and the setup. And then the tens of thousands are kind of coming for an experience. They get an impression, they leave, they take photos, and I'll just use auto show. The auto show is kind of for the privilege of you're in the industry or you just are super passionate. It's not for the common person to do a purchase. I'm, Kia Motors, and I get to now go to Electrify Expo and go, wow, that Kia car is actually way better than I was anticipating. I'm impressed. And so it leaves an impression. So, and it's nice for all of us, right? It's giving other lanes for us to kind of all hopefully supply attributes of cool experiences and immersive action and all that stuff. So the reapproach just in the industry alone, I think, has really evolved in kind of how they activate. And it's been fun.
So I'm thinking about most of the brands, certainly a lot of the examples that you've given are kind of traditional B2C kind of stuff, right? Like it's consumer-based brand, Volkswagen or Kia or Ferrari or Audi, I think it was rather. I've actually seen a couple of your projects on the trade show floor for more to B2B type of brands, and it works equally as well for that. And to your point, in a sea of what has become sameness, so we talk about reusability and modularity. What that has meant on the trade show floor primarily is the use of a lot of these, metrics, metal frame systems, B Matrix, AluVision, Nexus, whatever they may be. Once the B Matrix patent expired, everybody kind of copied them. Yeah. It's a great system. You can do an awful lot of stuff with it. We own a ton of it. But there's limitations to what you can do with that system. So a lot of the exhibits have ended up looking kind of the same, right? If you're building with flat aluminum frames and all you're doing is changing the skins and rebranding, until you bring in those different accessory pieces that make the architecture more interesting or use it in a different way, everything kind of starts looking somewhat the same. And then there's your stuff, which looks so very different and naturally just stands out. And yet it's equally as sustainable and maybe even more so, even though, to your point, I think you used the word sturdy presence, or stout presence. Not flimsy, the opposite of flimsy. Specifically, there was it was I think at RSA show, security show a couple of years ago, and there was a brand there, and they had a double stack unit, and they had a beer garden out front, and the architecture itself was nothing all that tricked out, but it was just cool as shit. It was it was just really cool. To your point, it's like, what about the container? It's just so freaking cool,
right?
And it was just very different, and it was kind of this industrial chic flavor to it,
right?
And they really kind of did a really nice job, leaning into that and then fitting out the rest of the space with the beer garden and the gathering space. And it was just really well done. And because you don't see it that often, it stands out that much more.
Yeah, we kind of are really starting to try to push the boundaries too associated with the container. So we really like a hybrid model. The container itself may exist, and then there's the outlier add-on as classic, materials, and or using the container to maybe create a barrel vault or a defined space, and it's the ballast that you're connecting to, creating some aspect of an awning, and then a wall that might define, and you've got displays going and such. So, we really are kind of in that lane heavy. We're in that lane when right now we're pushing pretty hard on World Cup 2026. And so the requirement isn't just food and beverage or hospitality or LED wall or it's shade, right? So shade, you're going to be out there for hours, so you better have some shade. So our designs, our models, our new things that we've been pitching have courtyards of shade, and it's attached to the container, and you might have your classic truss with your classic ballast out there, but you don't need in triplicate, Also in building LED walls, 2-story, 3-story, we've done a lot of LED walls using the container. So I can have the mounting system already incorporated, whether I'm using Unistrut or Schedule 40 pipe, and I do these standoffs. So in 15 minutes, like I said, ground floor goes in, second story, 15. Well, the truss system's built. So instead of having classic truss building and you're doing that and double the labor with your LED wall now going on to truss, you are building within 30 minutes, you're starting to build the LED wall. And then we're great for cable management too. So we've got hybrid kind of thing going with LED, us acting as ballast, shade, all that stuff can also be incorporated within the container as the Trojan horse for the material, box truck, undo it. So when we go World Cup, we're only going to have however many hours to set up, to sit there and exert energy to build trust and set up, and then take that down and take the trust down. We cut the labor in half, and then it's all going into the immediate container, and then that gets picked up onto a lift and it's out of there. So, or we could tuck it into a corner or, kind of thing. So yeah, we are really kind of enjoying kind of exercising newer concepts and for not just the system. I have maybe a few more photos.
Yeah, I was wondering, does it open up opportunities that maybe didn't exist before, like to get into a space quicker because you can do it quicker, you can do more, or you can build things that couldn't really be built because it would take too long? Like maybe some of these examples you can share, talk to that a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm not. This example is for Mattel. They did a podcast booth with Gary Vee up here, but you can start to see the other outlying support systems
Yep.
that are kind of being incorporated in this space. Classic, right? Stoutness, impression,
Yeah.
pretty straightforward, painted black, a little bit of letters, a little bit of interior desk and bar, but then the grand classic hanging sign, the huge LED wall that's hanging here, unveiling of car. So we're kind of helping hybrid this out, define space, that kind of thing. So on that.
Craig, when you're on the show floor, I think you mentioned this earlier, and I only know enough to be dangerous. But when we think about bringing any kind of goods onto the traditional trade show floor, and we are all aware of drayage is a monster, right? They're charging more and more and more for every pound that you send to the trade show floor. You guys are coming in a different door, let's just say, and the regulations with which you work in are different. So you're not paying. I don't know what a container weighs, but it probably weighs several tons, if not more, right? But you're not paying per pound like we are with a traditional crate. Tell us a little bit about how that works and how something so heavy can actually be so cost efficient to bring onto the show floor.
Yeah, and it's case by case, show by show. The show services a lot of times will want to go the per 100 weight kind of thing. Because our movements are super fast and we literally drive the truck onto the floor. It's a 15-minute move, heavy forklift. So it's typically kind of a handling and spotting fee, kind of like a car. And then we have historical billing. So there might be pushback. We can say, hey, look at this show, Freeman, or this show, GES. Here's some examples of what, and then we can kind of have a discussion at that point to sit there and negotiate the freight, the drayage, and all that good stuff. And when you are out in the field, it doesn't exist, right? I rent you a forklift when we go and we move, really fast. So you get your efficiencies there without that drayage fee. On the show floors, we have historical billing that we help work the price point for the team. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go back to, B2C. We are pretty much B2B. We work a lot. 90% of our stuff is with production houses and agencies. So all those projects that I'm showing that we did and I'm very proud of, an Audi, well, there's a production house in front of that or an agency in front of it. It's their client. Yeah. Our model is your sales team becomes our sales team. We're not a huge company. Your Rolodex is, extensive. You've got all these great relationships. We want to just participate and be kind of the Swiss Army knife in your toolbox, the kit that helps perform designs and delivers a great product, stress-free, with high quality, and we're pretty proud of our relationships, like our relationship, you and I, Chris, from the years and doing stuff. So I just want to make sure, we communicate. We don't market in that lane. We are heavy with the EDPA, Exhibitor Live, EMS, BizBash, all those and we sponsor pretty heavily because we're pretty passionate about our relationships that we currently have and trying to build even more in the production house and agency world.
So you're not so much like a white label, like people are presenting you guys as themselves, because obviously your skill set is very particular. So it's helpful to say, this is our partner, IPME. That said, if a brand comes directly to you, are you turning them away or say, just, bring your agency kind of needs to be the one who walks you in the door?
Not necessarily. We've had Lush Labs for a number of years. They do a tour-based deal. It's very holiday kind of choreographed and all that. So we're about 7.5% end user. it's very rare. Usually the brand wants the agency they've been working with, and they understand their color tones, they understand the logo, they understand to bring somebody in that is a one-off flair that they're going to do something with. It's a lot of cumbersomeness, and the marketer within the brand could have a really big black eye if it's not done to the level. So that's why, you've got 100 people in your company, because you've built these relationships. Your brands totally trust, they know what they're going to get and all that. So, we just are happy to fit in that pocket,
Right. What does like a tour look like for you guys? So you talked about, World Cup. And I know that, so I'm a Boston guy. I know that Gillette is one of the major, locations for that. So there's opportunities there. When you are working with a brand, are you looking at a road show ultimately that's maybe going to hit a number of the different locations? Or maybe that's just a bad example, but obviously you've got other roadshow scenarios. You create an activation. It's in LA, and then it's in San Francisco, and then it's and then it's going to Vegas, and then you're branching out. You're in Denver, you're in Salt Lake, or whatever. You're moving across. That's something that you guys do as well, and you have the bandwidth and or the relationships that facilitate all of those logistics, the moves, the people, the permitting, and all that kind of stuff. What does that side of your business look like? Because that's no small thing that you just kind of slough off and say, well, I'm just going to worry about the big box here, but. And we'll just show up and put it somewhere.
Yeah. Again, we're kind of experts in the world of logistics in our world of containers. We have inventory and or partners throughout the United States that if I need to house containers in between shows or in between soccer venues, I could take it off site. I already have the site that already has the big forklift and stack them and then come back and grab them again. But right now we've been solicited. We've got some things in the works. It'll be multiple containers in multiple markets that are emulations because games are going simultaneously. We even have stuff for Mexico City. And so we've got the ability to perform and all that because everyone's in the same pickle, right? Like every production house agency would have you needs to perform identical duplications or some iteration, thereof within markets that have games kind of going with overlap. There are some that work well where, I might go from Boston to New York and maybe I'm back again and I'm just driving some trucks and staging and late nights and all that. But yeah, we're really good at all of that stuff. We have a fleet of inventory now. Let's share this. Assets, models, all different shapes, sizes. We've got 20 foot, 40 foot, 30 foot. We exist already, so we can plug and play extremely fast. And I'll stop. So for us, we've got inventory, and I can emulate and duplicate and build pretty quick. I think one of the things you had asked too was, other advantages. Because I have the assets in stock, I turned and delivered for an LA Lakers event in 6 hours because they needed
6 hours. What?
Yeah, they needed
a bad precedent for the rest of us.
Yeah, it's just, we said, hey, it's in as-is condition. It just so happens to be painted blue, and I'll give you some walk-up bar kind of stuff. But, yeah. So, we sometimes get an okay lead time, and then sometimes it's real quick turn and burn. That's a really silly one, but
sounds completely ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. But we were able to perform. So
there you go.
Yeah. So that's sort of on the extreme in terms of like delivering on a timeline that maybe is extreme. But what are some examples maybe of some out of the box thinking or things that maybe somebody might not think of would be the shipping container would be the basis for that kind of an activation? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but are there some ideas that really were different and exciting that you guys have done?
We get a lot of different asks. So we had a winery, and we built a tasting room, but then we also built kind of an event space for this winery. This is called Feast It Forward. It exists up in Napa, right next to an area called the Oxbow, which is a concert hall, and the wall kind of butts right up against the concert hall, but has its own little stage. And so we kind of monetize and create this parking area, and it's got tasting rooms and some other stuff. So it's in a classic downtown area, and then you pop into this zone and it just turns into a very memorable kind of experience. So we built this particular structure, which is, for viewers, it was for CES 2024, Kia Motors. They wanted this is a 2,600 square foot looking house. What they're trying to do is communicate that the car, the EV, not only gets charged from the house, but it will charge the home if you lose power for 3 days. And so the build is got lights pulsing inside, outside. It has a 25-foot waterfall in the front. It has an infinity pool, pergola upstairs, living room upstairs, meeting, working kitchen, and then a simulation room inside the structure on a turntable and the 3 walls, and you're driving through the city. But everyone, and Chris, when I showed you this earlier, like, where's the container? And it's a good question.
Yeah.
It's actually not a container at all. We built it as a modular structure because we're also a certified modular building company. So we made it container-esque and built some oversized systems. So H cube is 12 foot wide. So you can see on the second story, it's 2 12-foot wide butt together. Yeah. And then the top story is 40 feet long, and it is 12 foot tall. The ground floor is 13 and a half feet tall. There are 11 oversized trucks that bring the system in, and we're cantilevered out. It just was a really special structure that we built. We're very, very proud. It got the Platinum Muse Design Award, and then it also we were acknowledged for Fab 50 award as well. So it has slate on the exterior, which is real slate. It has black lamb on the second story, real hardwood floor through the whole system. Again, working kitchen. It has 4 mini split systems, so it's in a zone based. And the design was designed around sustainability, that they want to reuse, repurpose. It actually breaks into 4 different model types. So you could take just your entryway only and leave the waterfall section home. You could just take the ground floor only, leave second story home. You could take second story and bring that down and activate that. That they're looking at doing Electrify Expo with the second story. Ground floor is currently being used 6 months now at the Forum in LA for concerts and all that. They just bought out the rights for the Amway Stadium in I think Tampa, and it's now the Kia Stadium. So the ground floor is probably going to get transported and built in Tampa in 2026. So these are some things we've done that you wouldn't think a container company would do with the experiential or the architectural attributes associated to. And that was really, one of our most proud structures we've ever built.
Pretty impressive.
The crazy story about that one, we got the PO in October. We had 82 days to lights on, which was January 8th, to literally from the design to build to install. We had from December 26th, I drove out from my house at 3 a.m. right after Christmas and worked around the clock practically until the 8th, lights on. 4-day show, and then we had 2.5 days to take it all down and store it in a special yard and shrink wrap and all that. So the crazy part is that structure, the efficiencies and how we built it, and the amount of labor we had to use as well to take it down was so much faster, obviously, but we had no choice because I think I can't remember which show was coming in directly thereafter, and they're like, everyone's got to get out of here.
Pack them up.
Yeah, the cranes that we had for that one, the amount of trucks that we had, but we were very accustomed to that, right? When you work in the modular building world, we built the school, 32 shipping containers. We delivered 16 containers first day, 16 containers second day, all stacked with the crane. So in 2 days, we had the whole structure kind of built in place. It was a hybrid, so I had other subcontractors going out and kitting out other attributes. But what would have taken usually a year and a half to build, we built it in 7 months because we used the hybrid style. And the delivery of the containers, we had trucks staged, and we're pretty accustomed to thinking creatively to fix or fit a problem.
We're gonna have you come back again, Craig, because I've got too many other questions. But as we wrap up, just want to kind of kick it back over to you. You talked about a whole lot of things. If there is a brand or an agency or a group out there that is interested in using you, or for anybody just in general, marketers and event people that we are talking to here, do you have a couple of kind of key things that you might want to leave with them, take away, or like, hey, if you're going to do this, make sure that you that right there?
Yeah, I think, when you think sustainability, I obviously touched that pretty well, but if there's a plug and play that someone needs in that lane, we're great. Labor and the creative aspects of, I might have a quick turnaround time, or I need to do a tour and all that, I just want to kind of do an exclamation point on, we're great at doing that. The nice thing too is the stress levels associated to builds are fraction based in comparison, with having to manage a lot of people. So we can alleviate a lot of pressure on that. And then thinking creatively, I think, as far as ballast and shade and LED walls. I know, Brendon, you were asking, what lanes did you all of a sudden kind of come into that you didn't think you were going to get into? Well, that was one of them where, being an audiovisual attribute of functionality, or kind of being ballast associated to additional build out. So I think thinking creatively where how we enhance classic show builds. In addition, we incorporate and we just make it kind of a fun environment. One of the events we did, Avocados in Mexico, they did that very, very well. We are the food and beverage, but then they have so much other message boarding that they need to get out that we are just this great mainstay, and then they are building aspects onto it. So I think that's one of the great takeaways. And then we have inventory. We're quick turnaround times. I have designers structurally engineered. So, just some of those key points we talked about earlier. Just wanted to make sure, we can really make building an event out, an immersive activation, kind of stress-free.
So somewhere between 6 hours and 82 days, really pretty much anything can happen in that time frame.
Pretty much. I built a downtown Afghanistan for the Marines. I did 90 containers, 60 days, completely from scratch with breakaway doors and stair systems and railings and banisters. And so that was, we also shrimp breeding tanks in Vegas. We did 45 containers in 22 days, making biodams to breed shrimp and all that. So we're pretty good at doing
a little bit of everything.
We're pretty techie,
Yeah.
We've done spy boxes for the Marines to fly drones with EMI shielded office, 30-foot antenna, retractable roof, self-leveling legs that get dropped from helicopters 4.5 feet out of the air, 50 hertz electrical, 60 hertz electrical. So we're techie.
Got flexibility.
Yeah, I think Hamlin Creative needs a shipping container.
Absolutely, right there
HQ
in the yard.
Yeah.
What's the best way to reach you or find your site?
Well, our website is www.goipme.com. And then a great way to get in touch with us is info@goipme.com, or my first name, Craig, @goipme.com. We are on LinkedIn. You just got to type my name in. You'll find me. IPME is on LinkedIn. Also, we have a great Instagram for some inspiration if you kind of want to explore more. So you can find us on Instagram. So those are pretty much the main areas to find us.
Well, this
Absolutely.
has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. A
you.
lot of fun, a lot of great information here. Really appreciate your time. The visuals, we're going to work in some of this stuff into the notes with links to the video and so forth. But hey, Craig, thanks so much for stopping by. This has been wonderful, Brendon.
Yes.
This is awesome to hang out with you.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers to
Thanks
that. Cheers to you, sir. Very
Cheers.
good. Enjoy. Well, goodbye to everybody. Happy eventing. Have a great rest of the week.